right? Then all of a sudden you can't pay it back, right? Kind of makes sense? So why'd the problem happen then? The whole credit debacle. What happened here? Look, can't spell it here. You guys don't know who Phil Graham is, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, Graham Leach, man, he's some senator.
was a senator,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, what's in from Texas?
Texas, very good.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he's retired now, as far as I know. At least he did run for re-election after this law. He ran for president in 2000. Yeah, but I guess he didn't do so well.
That's a long stretch.
Against advice?
What's that?
It was done against financial advice.
I think he was. I think he was, you're right. But he's not like a senator anymore. He just kind of disappeared after he lost the presidential election in 2000. And Bliley, you may know him, he's a congressman from Virginia. He kind of became famous also because he had his 10 minutes of fame in 1999, December. He was one of the guys pushing for Clinton's impeachment until they found out he had about 43 children scattered over the country. Something like that. Anyway, he's a congressman, but he also pushed through the Graham-Bliley Act. And the other two people that were kind of famous here, anybody know? One was Al D'Amato. I don't know if you know who Al D'Amato is. He was senator from New York for a long time. Very wealthy man these days. A new father himself. He's 82 years old. He just became a father. Congratulations.
Nice real estate guy, real estate mogul.
24-year-old wife. Right?
Smart lady.
But he's a billionaire. How do you get to be a billionaire on $135,000 a year is still the question to ask. But nonetheless, I'm sure this all happened legitimately. Right? But
Well, when a man and a woman really love each other.
He decided not to run for re-election like a week before the election about 6 years ago.
Rottenberg.
No.
No, the guy that didn't run. He was a senator until they found out that he had an awfully expensive standard of living that went way beyond his $135,000 salary. See, I'm picking on Republicans and Democrats here. The guy in New Jersey was a Democrat. What was his name? I forget it. It was an Italian name, and I can't remember. Anyway, he was stealing money, right? He had millions of dollars on a $135,000 salary. Nobody could figure out how he had millions of dollars, right? Anyway, they were also co-sponsors of this bill, all right? I can't think of his name. He was the senator before Lautenberg. Lautenberg, at the last minute, like a week before the election, said, I'll run, all right? Because, the other guy was in trouble. Can't think of his name.
He lives in Englewood, too.
I couldn't tell you where he lives. All I know is New Jersey.
That's that way.
Anyway, he was a thief, right? That was the motto, right? Anyway, the important point here is this repealed the Glass-Steagall Act, right? They repealed the Glass-Steagall Act. Why is that? I thought it made sense. Investment banks could be commercial banks. The only proviso, they said, was you had to have what they call a Chinese wall, which means the two groups couldn't talk to each other. They had to have different email suffixes and so on. You guys ever walk up to what's it, Franklin Street? Franklin and Greenwich Street? That's Citibank headquarters, right? It's only about a mile northwest of here. Can't even see the building.
Torricelli.
Torricelli, that's it, thank you. Alright? It's only about a mile northwest of here. So Solomon Brothers is there, and so is Citibank. But they can't talk to each other, right? They're on separate floors. But if you ever go outside during the daytime there, you'll see people coming out to smoke cigarettes, right? Could some of them be Citibank people, and could some of them be Solomon Brothers people? But they would never talk to each other, right?
No, of course not.
I mean, it's kind of a silly division, because well, you're in the same building, but you're not talking to each other, right? Kind of silly. It's
So they have
just-
to have the different, like, the elevator banks, no?
Yeah, they do, but they come out and smoke cigarettes together. They wait for trains together, they wait for taxis together, and so on, right?
But that could be just an argument, like, even if they were in two different buildings, because they could call each other.
Oh, well, you got, see, phone calls you can record them, right? Whereas while you're smoking cigarettes outside, who's gonna monitor what's going on, right? Alright, anyway, and that's why this guy at Solomon Brothers got in big trouble with his, what do you call it, 92nd Street Y application. Because they found out he was pushing on the Citibank guys to make loans that they shouldn't have been making, alright? Gotta remember his name too, I can't think of it. Alright, anyway, the important point here is they repealed it, why? Now you're gonna have the conflicts of interest again.
It's a lobbyist.
Yeah,
Just
but
to come-
why don't you keep the Glass-Steagall Act?
It made sense back then, doesn't make sense now.
But-
It is what it is.
Well, what forces the hand? You know, Bill Clinton signed this bill. He said, you know, I saw him on an interview maybe a month ago, he said, I didn't sign that bill.
Greenspan said it's okay.
And then when you remind them and show them the pictures of the signing ceremony, he said, yeah, but that was, is and was, and, you know,
Does it,
he tortured distinctions.
Does it have, that have to do something, that where UK, like, other countries, they never had that separation? So
That's right,
because
those
of that-
countries never
So
had.
because of that, like, their institutions are growing and,
So
they're
what's the-
assuming
what are you saying?
better risk and stuff, so we couldn't compete our institutions.
Very good, right? Because Citibank is saying, look, we can't compete. JP Morgan, we can't compete. These European guys, these Asian guys, they do whatever the hell they want, and you're telling us we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't do this. It's not fair. So here's the deal. Either you let us do it, or we're moving to London. Right? Which is what they've done anyway, right? Half of this stuff that's going on, especially with AIG, happened out of London. It's the rats on the subway again. You put in these controls on them, they're gonna slip out and figure out other ways to do what they wanna do. All right? Okay, so this brings back the moral hazard, right? No good on that? Alright, so what's the argument here that we can do it better than we could in the 1920s? Well, the first thing is diversification. Look, we're in a much better position in the 1990s than we were in the 1920s. Do you know in the 1920s, you were not allowed to have a bank branch outside of your own state? You guys aware of that?
I wasn't around in 19.